Hey everybody, hope you guys enjoyed All-Star Weekend. I enjoyed the All-Star Game, really didn't catch any of Saturday's events because I had some friends come over, I was on vacation, hence why you haven't seen videos in the last 8 days, so apologies for that, but had some homies come over, and when your longtime friends come over, it's always a good time, so I enjoyed that, was able to catch the game on Sunday, loved watching Steph go ballistic, loved watching Joel Embiid go ballistic to a lesser extent as well, and seeing him and Nikola Jokic go at it for a few possessions. Seeing the NBA Top 75 ceremony was also really cool to see, just because if you just love not only just the game of basketball itself, but the history around it, the legendary players, etc., that was really awesome to see. Now all of that's over, and we are heading to the quote-unquote second half of the season. Well, really, the last 23 games of the season, because we've been well past the halfway point. But for some reason, we like to call All-Star break the halfway point. I wanted to talk about a team that I'm going to be watching as the season closes, and wondering what their playoff outlook is going to look like, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the Dallas Mavericks were one of the more talked about teams before the season started. One, because I just think we didn't know what we were going to get with Jason Kidd being the head coach. I've certainly been really critical of Jason Kidd. Also did not like the hire when it happened, but obviously he has shown so far this year at least that everybody was wrong and that the Mavericks did make the right decision. But the Mavericks kind of started off weird. They had a really good record to start the year, but then also at the same time with their early really good record had a negative point differential. So this team was kind of confusing to get a gauge on. Luka was out of shape coming into training camp, then he suffered the ankle injury, and so the Mavericks kind of had to tinker and retool around that. And with that, we also got some emergence from Jalen Brunson, and he's been fucking fantastic this year, especially filling in for Luka. Kristaps Porzingis started, becoming a really good post-up player, but then he fizzled out, and then he got traded to the Wizards in what was one of the more shocking trades of the deadline. Don't need to relitigate that. But since the new year, the Dallas Mavericks have flat out been one of the best teams in the NBA, and it's been for a few reasons. One, you got to give it up to Jason Kidd, especially if you're a skeptic like myself or somebody who's just not a fan of Jason Kidd like myself. Jason Kidd has done a good job coaching up the Mavericks this year. One of the goals was to make the Mavericks a better defensive team, and Kidd has accomplished that thus far this year. The Mavericks are 6th in defensive rating. Before the new year, the Mavericks were 15th, which was still a lot better than their previous campaigns in the Luka Doncic era. The problem was the offense. The Mavericks were historically great in terms of offensive rating the previous 2 seasons, but then Jason Kidd came in, and it took a little bit for the Mavericks to figure it out. Also, the combination of Luka being out of shape and also dealing with that ankle injury early on. But again, since the new year, the Mavericks are finding their way back into the top 11 in terms of offensive rating, and they have the second best defense in the NBA. And what's really impressive about the defense is that you look at the Mavericks roster, it's more or less the same. Obviously, having Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans on the Mavericks now is a bit different. But before those trades, the Mavericks pretty much had the same roster. I'm just really impressed with how Jason Kidd is able to turn that roster into a really good defensive group. I don't know if they're top 6 good like their defensive rating suggests. I don't know if they're top 2 good like their defensive rating since the new year suggests, but they have done some simple things. They're really good at defending in transition. They do a really good job of getting back. They do a really good job communicating off of turnovers, whether they turn the ball over, off of a live rebound. So the Mavericks were good there. In the half court, they are good as well. They are playing a modern style of defense. They are 13th in terms of opponent shots at the rim, the frequency, that's per cleaning the glass. And then in the mid-range, they allow teams to take all the mid-rangers they want, and they are top 5 in terms of opponent three-point shots attempted. So the Mavericks have just done some basic things, it seems like, to, one, make up for the fact that really If you look at the roster, the only good defenders you can see on that roster are Dorian Finney-Smith. Dwight Powell has familiarity. Josh Green has shown flashes of being a really solid defensive player, has been playing more minutes this year, the second-year guard. Maxi Kleber still provides the Mavericks with versatility on the defensive end, and Frank Ntilikina, even though he's playing 12 minutes a game, his best traits are on the defensive end. So the Mavericks have some pieces, but overall you don't look at that unit and go, that has the makeup and the profile of a top 6 defense. But again, Jason Kidd has done a good job coaching them up this year. I do think that the team will run into some problems on the defensive end come playoff time, especially when teams just key in on certain mismatches and just pick at that all game like a scab. But the Mavericks are showing something that they haven't shown really the last few years, and that's attention to detail. The coaches putting a better scheme around the players. I do think they are playing a little above their head. I don't think they're a top 6 defense, even though their rating suggests that, like I said. But Jason Kidd, props to him. The Mavericks are playing some damn good defense, and the offense is coming around because Luka Doncic is playing like the first team All-NBA player and MVP candidate that we know he can play at, as displayed over the last 2 seasons. If you just look at the stats overall on the year and then split it between before the new year and after the new year, you could see Luka's production has spiked, and I think that corresponds with him, one, getting in shape as the season goes along, and also he is removed from that ankle injury. You could see the offensive rating before the new year and then after the new year. It corresponds around the time when Luka really started putting his production into high gear. And now that Kristaps Porzingis is off the team, and not that it was ever not Luka's team, it's been very clearly Luka's team the moment he was drafted, but there is something to be said with a star or a talented player like Porzingis not necessarily seeing eye to eye with Doncic. But now that Luka has full reins of the team and not required to dump it to Kristaps in the post every once in a while, we might see a whole new other level that Luka can get to before the end of the season. And I think the Mavericks are poised to make a big post-All-Star break run right before the playoffs. Now, what's their ultimate playoff outlook going to be? I would still put them below the Warriors, obviously, the Suns, and the Grizzlies. Even the Jazz a little bit, even though I have high skepticism with the Jazz. Where it gets tricky for me is that the Mavericks clearly have one of the 7 or 8 best players in the NBA and a bona fide tier 1 franchise superstar. So that's the ultimate wild card, right? Because we've seen Luka destroy the Clippers in back-to-back series, but he really didn't have any help around him, and the Clippers were a bad matchup for the Mavericks, etc. But what happens when the Mavericks run into a different team in the first round like the Jazz? The Jazz don't have any answer for Luka. I've documented before that the Jazz's perimeter defense is just something that scares me to death because they don't have anybody aside from Royce O'Neal. But what if Luka just goes on a absolute heater and rips them apart in the first round and boots the Jazz out? That's the type of dark horse wild card power that the Mavericks hold, because I don't think their defense is top 6 good. I do think they have quite a few weak links that other good teams can exploit. But then you look at the Mavericks in their recent turnaround since the new year, they have beaten some really damn good teams. And you'll see the games that they have won since the new year up here on the board. They have had some really great wins. But I'm skeptical of the Mavericks defense in the playoffs, and I'm still skeptical of their offense, even though Jalen Brunson has proven that he could be that long sought after secondary ball handler right after Luka. But I do think the Mavericks have some flaws, but their ultimate wild card, and why I just can't rule them out as somebody that can make a dark horse run to the conference finals, is that Luka Doncic is playing spectacular basketball once again, especially since the new year. And when you have that type of player in the playoffs, anything's possible, and that team has a puncher's chance.